Afternoon, members of the media, wider viewing and listening public of Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome to this afternoon's post-cabinet media conference. I have with me two of my colleagues, the Minister of Works and Transport, Senator Sinanan, and the Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, Minister Hussein, here with me today as we really just do a wrap-up of what we've been dealing with over the course of this week, and in particular, Tropical Storm Karen and the effects of Tropical Storm Karen. I apologize for the absence of the Minister of Communication. She had a previously scheduled arrangement that really is a very, very narrow period of time dealing with the upcoming national budget. I'd like to just start by handing over to Minister Hussain for him just to give us a wrap-up of how things have gone from a local government perspective, and I apologize in advance because Mr. Hussain is heading down to Piparo, and I'd like him to leave as soon as he finishes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Young. Good afternoon to the members of the media and the wider viewing, listening public. The Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government has started cleanup efforts since Sunday. We have been in the highly affected areas, which is Bamboo number 3, Bamboo number 1, Mount Lambert, Barataria. They were the hardest hit areas, and I want to say special thank you to the mayors, chairmen of the different corporations, the councillors, and especially to the disaster management unit of the two highly affected corporations. Yesterday, day before yesterday, I was in the Mount Lambert area, the debris in the road, the clogged drains, and we continue to see more and more plastics and mattresses and so on in drains. We are appealing to the public once again to kindly use your sense of what I say, belonging, patriot, be a patriot, and keep your surroundings clean, keep in front of your house clean. The CPAP company has been out there, and I must commend, these are the unsung heroes. I always say these workers are the unsung heroes. They have been there helping the citizens, the burgesses, to help clean their houses, their driveway, the drains, and so on. And I will continue to work. This morning, before I came to the cabinet meeting, I was in the Bamboo area, and the CPAP and the Penal Labor Corporation was not affected, but we use our all-of corporation approach, and the Penal sent a team of about 30 or 40 workers with the equipment, and they were in the Bamboo assisting the Tunapuna Corporation. And we continue to clean as the time passes by.
Thank you very much, Minister Hussain, and at this stage we will excuse my colleague as he makes his way down to Piparo. We could deal with Piparo. I'll deal with the Piparo. I would like the minister to get down to Piparo because there's a meeting that is starting at 1 o'clock.
All right. Thank you very much, colleague.
All right. Before I hand over to the Minister of Works and Transport, I'd just like to make a few points. The first point is that the Greenvale and Orupun areas that were devastatingly affected last year, it must be acknowledged that this year, fortunately, but good fortune follows a lot of hard preparation before, neither of them were affected. I'd like to personally thank the Ministry of Works and Transport for the amount of work that was done prior to the rainy season, as well as the Housing Development Corporation. They did a lot of preemptive work. When I flew overhead and did the aerial reconnaissance, it was very evident the amount of work that went in to prevent flooding in those two areas. And even though there was heavier than and very unusual amounts of rainfall on the Sunday, neither of those areas suffered flooding. And that is because of all of the preemptive work done by the Ministry of Works and the Housing Development Corporation. And I'd like to take the opportunity as well to thank the workers led by the Minister of Housing, as well as the Managing Director of the Housing Development Corporation. The Managing Director of the Housing Development Corporation and his staff were on the ground throughout the 48-hour period on Sunday and Monday in the Greenvale and Orapun areas, reassuring people and also assisting in other housing areas around those locations, making sure that persons had sandbags and these types of things. The team, the interministerial team that you all would have seen addressing the nation over that 72-hour period, 3 of us who are here today, worked constantly and consistently from the Sunday morning when I was first alerted at 5 a.m. that morning by the ODPM and by the Met Services as to the impending tropical storm Karen. She was just forming into a tropical storm and they were working out the trajectory. And at that stage, it was felt that there would be more effects on Trinidad and Tobago than happened. Again, people of Trinidad and Tobago, we were very fortunate, we were very lucky that we did not feel the full brunt. And by noon of that day, that the storm had moved upwards and away. But still, the tail end effects and the feeder effects were felt in Trinidad and Tobago. And you all saw what happened. But again, thanks to the good work that was done by the Ministry of Works and Transport as well as local government in the cleaning and the silting of rivers, river courses and drains, we managed to survive that. We consistently monitored it throughout the whole period and were in constant communication with both the substantive Prime Minister as well as the acting Prime Minister. And I thank both of them for the support that they gave us at the ministerial level. At this stage, before I deal with Piparo, I'd pass over to the Minister of Works and Transport for him to address us on what happened and what has happened since we were downgraded at both the riverine level as well as Tropical Storm Karen and what he has seen in the cleanup exercises. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, and welcome to members of the media. As part of our reporting on the episodes of the past couple of days, since we had the weather alert of the tropical storm Karen, at the Ministry of Works and Transport, we would have gotten notification of the impending bad weather. And we immediately went out on the field, checking the infrastructure and putting things in place to ensure that we can respond in the shortest possible time. That worked for us because once the water started to rise, we actually had people out there on the field monitoring the different areas. And in some cases, as someone sent me, while the rain was falling, there was in one of the rivers, there was a blockage and people were actually cleaning it. Now, that is a far cry to where we were in the past. You'd be aware that the ministry took full advantage of the dry season, and we took on a very adventurous program of close to 400 projects. It actually started at 350 projects in 3 phases. We eventually went into a 4th phase because of we got some extra funding, and we took the program up to 400 projects. We would have been able to complete that project. That would have helped us significantly in terms of the catchment areas, the amount of the capacity in the water courses. Unfortunately, there was some spillage, especially in the St. Joseph River, the Sanwa River, the Maraval River, and the Diego Martin River. This spillage in the San Juan River is probably what would have accounted for the water in the Bamboo 1 and Bamboo 3 area. That water, by Tuesday morning, Bamboo 3 was back to normal in terms of the removal of the water, because you'd recognize that that area is a very low-lying area, and we have to depend on the pumps in that area to get the water out. We brought in an additional pump, and by Tuesday morning, that area had no water, and the cleanup operation would have started. In terms of the Bamboo 1, that took a little longer, but by by midday Tuesday, the gates were able to be opened. The pumps were working. We had 2 pumps there, and the gates were open, so the water receded very quickly in that Bamboo 1 area. Now that we would have identified the areas of the breach, the way forward. And the way forward, today we're having a postmortem on actually where the breaches took place and what can be done going forward. we would have looked at all the areas where some additional work have to go into. Normally, after a downpour like this and you get that level of rain in the channels, you will get some blockage. So over the past couple of days, we would have been identifying all these areas, and the ministry, through the engagements of some of their bonded contractors and some of our in-house equipment, would have started the silting in certain areas again and the removal of blockages. And the post-mortem was to identify all the breaches and how we can put things in place to ensure that we could mitigate against the same thing happening again. So we would identify all the areas that were breached and look at ways going forward how to deal with that. In terms of some of the pumps and so, you recognize that most of our pumps are 30, 40 years old. Some of them were in the early 80s and so on. Cabinet did approve for us a program going forward. In the bamboo, one area where we have two pumps there that I think they came in 1986, when the capacity of water was significantly less. That is one of the sites that was earmarked for upgrading of pumps and actually putting in new electrical pumps. I'm informed that contract have been awarded, and very soon we'll be seeing new pumps coming into the island, because our plan is to replace all the old pumps in Trinidad, bring in new pumps with a much larger capacity so that we can get the water out of these low-lying areas in a much shorter time. In terms of, again, as I said, the way forward for the ministry, we will continue to monitor all the water courses, because we are now at the time where we expect more heavy showers going forward. We are coming down to the time of the rainy season when we normally would expect flooding. The ministry will not ignore its responsibilities, but to ensure that we continue to work on these water courses to continue to improve the capacity in the different areas. I want to take this opportunity to congratulate all the staff at the Ministry of Works and Transport who would have put in extra hours, who, gave me the support 24 hours a day, came out with me every day. Anytime I call them, they would come out, they would meet me. I want to congratulate them and thank them. And I also want to congratulate all the other agencies who would have supported us. I think this was a brilliant team effort by all the agencies, and I think we were able to come out of this in a very positive way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to add to what my colleagues have said with respect to this flooding, a few things I'd like the population of Trinidad and Tobago to take away. The government, through the Ministry of Works and Transport and other divisions, as you heard, housing and local government, did a lot of preparatory works, a lot of preemptive works. But the amount of littering that you saw that was stuck in the various water courses, in the drains, at the river mouths, etc., was not only disturbing and distressing, but it was disgusting. Walking along the coastline afterwards and seeing the amount of plastic bottles, styrofoam, etc., this government, I'd like to remind you, took a decision, and Cabinet did agree with and pass the banning of styrofoam. So there will be no more styrofoam in, I believe it is from 2020. But it is up to each and every one of us to stop the callous littering. And that's not to say we also saw the fridges and old appliances in certain river courses and drains, even though the Ministry of Works had desilted over 400 water courses over time. So I call upon citizens, let us be more responsible, us, all of us inclusive, and not do the littering, and just be more responsible about our environment. Another phenomenon we're going to be facing is climate change is real. Global warming is real. I see it on a daily basis, how high the tide is within recent times. I am seeing record levels of high tide taking place in Trinidad and Tobago. When you have a high tide meeting with rainfall, it is going to back up, and there will be flash flooding. When there's flash flooding, we are asking people to continue to exercise common sense and caution. Do not drive out in the flooded areas. You do not know what is going on underneath that flood water. You can't sometimes see where the drains are, where the roadway ends, and these types of things. please be more responsible, because it makes the job of first responders so much more difficult if we have to be diverting our resources to rescue people as opposed to dealing with other areas. I'd also like to join my colleague in thanking everyone who worked tirelessly over that period, including you, the members of the media, coming out and covering all of our various conferences. The police service, the defense force, the fire services, all of the aldermen and the councillors in local government, as well as the staff, the DMU units. You all would recall I went across to Tobago, met with the chief secretary. We were always in contact, giving them the assistance that they need, or offering the assistance that they may need from here. It was a very good example of the all of government approach with our other colleagues, and that's part of the success. To move on to the second topic, the topic of Piparo. As I thought about the topic of Piparo and saw some of the coverage of what is going on in Piparo, or some of the noise, the adage of the empty barrel makes the most noise came to mind. Unfortunately, opposition politicians are making a lot of unnecessary noise about Piparo, and most of it completely untrue and false. This also started occurring on Saturday night. This is the eruption. There was not a massive eruption. There was seismic activity coming out of the volcano, if that's the right term to use. One house was affected. Immediately, you all will remember, national security has many arms. The police service is one of the arms of national security. Immediately, the police service and the fire service, another arm of national security, were on the ground, evacuated the family from the home, cordoned off the area. On the Sunday night, I personally requested of the permanent secretary and the head of the ODPM that we ensure that we have scientific personnel on the ground there analyzing what was going on in Piparo. And I was pleased to find out that had already taken place. So you, the members of the media, would have seen a release come out from the Ministry of National Security either on Monday or Tuesday of this week, stating that Touchstone and a scientist from Touchstone, a private entity, was assisting us in analyzing. I'd also requested that the seismic unit at UE, as well as the volcanology unit at UE, be notified, and they were already there. So it is wrong to say that the government did not have scientific data and analysis taking place from the word go. It is also wrong to say that this was left up to the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is an arm of the Ministry of National Security and part of government. They were doing their part and doing so very well, along with the fire services. The government has been monitoring this from the word go. It's not necessary for the Minister of National Security to be there. The Minister of Local Government and Rural Development was on the ground. So when we met on Sunday to deal with Tropical Storm Karen, he reported that he had already gone to Piparo before coming to the 10 o'clock media conference on Sunday. The government has been monitoring it. The ODPM is in charge. So I spoke yesterday to the head of ODPM and the permanent secretaries at the Ministry of National Security, and we are dealing with Piparo. So it is very wrong, it is inaccurate, it's false, it's misleading, and it's empty barrel making the most noise to suggest that the government is not aware and not in charge of the situation down at Piparo. And I'll end on this note by asking citizens to remain responsible and exercise common sense. There can be danger in going there. The scientists and the authorities have said, stay away from the site. The residents of Piparo, there's only one that I don't even think they use the shelter. The shelter is open. The residents of Piparo know not to go near to where this activity is taking place in case there's an eruption. However, we have persons from all over Trinidad going down there and making it a scene. Please do avoid it, because then if something happens and there's a massive eruption and persons are injured, you're responsible for yourself at the end of the day. The authorities have done what they can do. There's a meeting, as I said. There was one yesterday. There's another one taking place there today. Mr. Hussein has gone down. I am getting constant feedback from the technocrats, including the ODPM, who I have asked to take charge of the situation. We have the scientists on board. They are assisting us as well in the assessment of all that is going down at Piparo. At this stage, we'll take a few questions.
is there something different that is happening with its construction or anything that's causing flooding on the highways? And what can be done to ensure that there is a way to move people out, because these are evacuation routes, in case of emergency?
All right. Let me answer this question in two parts. We do have some carelessness. If I'm to go to the Mausica, where we saw some flooding some time ago, I still have that under investigation. Yes, we are getting some abnormal rainfall, and a lot of the water would have to make its way into the Caroni through the tributaries. In terms of the Mausica area, I personally went down there on 2 occasions over that weekend. And there was a lot of human error, and I'm hoping that it was not intentional, where we found a lot of concrete in the cylinder. We have since desilted, tried to take out most of that concrete, and if you notice, there was no flooding with all the rain that fell in the area, in that Mausica area. So we would have solved that problem there to an extent. There was no flooding over this period, and there was significant rain. If you look, there was some ponding of the water at the Abattoir Road there, which stayed on the road for a couple of days. Again, I went in there. It was Tuesday morning, and we did a lot of desilting work to the underground drain that was there. And that water went down within about 20 minutes of completing that. So we are monitoring all these areas on the highway, that highway heading to San Fernando. We have to recognize something there, that the Caroni River passes there. That normally would have been a place where we would allow the river to breach in certain areas. Commercial activities have virtually taken over the entire left side going to San Fernando. And the land was significantly changed. Everybody probably raised the land 4 feet, 5 feet. So what you have there happening now is that the same amount of water that normally would breach in that area has a smaller area, and you have the water rising at certain areas. And we do have a challenge just at one of the interchange heading to San Fernando. What we're trying to put in place there is a constant maintenance at that point, because these are low-lying areas. And obviously, when you have that volume of water, you will get some crossing of the highway. What the Ministry of Works is trying to do is to ensure that in the shortest possible time, we can have the runoff. I don't think we got much threats on the highway with all this rain because of the amount of work, again, that came in. At the Grand Bazaar interchange, what happened there was a breach of the San Juan River. And as I said before, we're doing a post-mortem now because we suspect some water would have probably come across from the St. Joseph River higher up, and that would have joined the San Juan River. And that actually came across the interchange and ended up in Bamboo. So what we're looking at, and we had a team out yesterday and day before, looking at all the areas where the water would have breached to try to analyze what would have caused the flooding at the interchange. And once we can identify that, then we will put everything in place to ensure that we can mitigate it happening again. This is not a case where we just clean up the area and wait for the next flood. We move away from that. We're going to identify the areas that breach and immediately take action to mitigate against it happening again. So in terms of the highway flooding, these are direct areas that we're concentrating on to avoid or to minimize it.
Question, Minister, regarding the littering and the amount of litter we have seen during the floods in the past few days. I know that the government was talking about the beverage container bill. What is happening with that at this point?
The beverage container bill is being revised, and the Attorney General has told us at Cabinet, working along with the Ministry of Planning as well as the Ministry of Public Utilities, we expect to see the draft that they intend to take to Parliament very shortly. The intention is to lay that, I believe, before the end of this year. Now, I want to say something. Even with the passage of law and the enforcement of laws, it's still, we have laws, don't speed. We have laws, wear your seatbelt. We have laws, don't text and be on your phone whilst you're driving. I see it on a daily basis. Our citizens breach those laws. So it is really about taking personal responsibility. But to answer your question, we intend to bring a beverage bill, a revised beverage bill, back to the Parliament and to push hard for the passage of that bill. There, I believe the Attorney General told us there is a requirement for a 3/5 majority or a special majority. So I would hope that the opposition would support it. And that is where we are with it. Another point we discussed today at Cabinet, but I'd also discussed it with my ministerial colleagues previously in the week, and we had touched on it quite extensively in our last press conference on this, is the enforcement of the laws. We spoke about persons stealing material from the riverbanks, etc. We intend, once we have the evidence, to investigate, have the police investigate those matters and prosecute it. But again, quite frankly, to use the police time to run down people who are stealing from riverbanks, where there can be no excuse for that, again, is very highly irresponsible and is something that we discourage people from doing. And we as citizens just have to tell other citizens, don't break the law.
Fine is for that offense, and is there a need to have state?
As I said on the last occasion, I mean, it depends on what you're charged for. If it's for larceny and larceny of material and that type of thing, so it really depends on what the charge is.
Small. Is there a need to get serious?
At this stage, I don't know what the exact fines are, sentences are, etc. Just let's not break the law.
Where everybody starts coming around and says, well, what the government do and compensate. Have people come for you to what compensation has money been put aside? That's one. And two, is it time that we start mandating that homeowners get flood insurance as opposed to the same way if you drive a car, you have to have car insurance. If you have a house, get flood insurance. Is it time?
With respect to the claims being made, the Minister of Social Development and Family Services was part of our communication throughout the whole period. The assessments are being done by the Ministry of Local Government. I think those are handled initially by the corporations. Thankfully, I thank Minister Sinaran for this, they saved taxpayers significant amounts of money. The extensive flooding that we saw take place in October last year didn't happen this year, so there's been no need for us to have a special allocation of money to deal with persons seeking grants and seeking assistance. As far as we are aware, the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services is dealing with it. So there's not been a massive flood, as well as, no pun intended, as well as the Minister of Agriculture, Lands and Fisheries. He was with us at our last press conference and spoke about what he had witnessed. Farmers will be dealt with as well. With respect to mandatory home insurance, again, I guess that is something we can look at from a policy point of view, but I could well imagine the noise that you would hear if you were to make that mandatory for all homeowners, and rents would go up, etc. Again, it's just being personally responsible.
The minister coming back to
Let me just add to what the minister is saying. In most cases, the areas that would have been flooded out are areas that were never designated for housing. Okay, it's very low-lying areas, areas that was prone to flooding. In most cases, they were areas that you expect the water to pond. Now, I don't know if an insurance company will insure your house if you go there to build. Because I have had the experience in the last couple of days when we go out there, people say, come and see my damage. And I am wondering, obviously, if you build there and you get this downpour, you're going to expect water in there. So, we have, again, some responsibilities. If you look at the riverbanks, we have a challenge with people removing dirt. A major challenge we have is people utilizing the riverbanks to plant. And they keep plowing the riverbank and removing dirt because they want their crops. And then when we go to clean the rivers, they would threaten the operators and say, no, you can't come on this bank because I have my crops there, so you can't even clean the river. We have to recognize that the reason why there's a riverbank is for a purpose. It's not a place for you to go and plant. It's not a place for you to go and build on the bank because the bank is higher than the river. So,
question.
all right, so I just wanted to just to add to that a lot of the areas that you see and you get claims from are areas that were really never designated as housing areas. Unfortunately, unplanned developments and so, and then these turn out to be communities. And now we're in a position where we and communities and businesses. Thank you.
All of the answer there. I mean, we talk about people building in areas that they're not supposed to build. But what are the government agencies that's going to prevent that from happening? Because the thing is that we see the effects of people doing unplanned development in these areas. Are there going to be some level of push for the agencies like Town and Country or whoever it is, agencies that will be able to start to enforce the proper legislation to avoid this floods? These flooding don't just affect them, but it affects the nation at whole.
That's a good question. So, I mean, it's not only Town and Country. Town and Country is really persons who go and apply, they wouldn't get the permission. There are some provisions under the Town and Country Planning Act that would allow for cease and desist and allow for removal of persons' properties if they don't adhere to the notice. There's also a Commissioner of State Lands issue if it is state lands. It is not an easy thing. I mean, you all went out, you all covered, you all saw for yourselves in some of the areas that the two ministers have discussed, down in Arangwes area, down in the various Bamboo 1, 2, and 3. Those are permanent structures that people have constructed. So it really is a difficult problem because you can't just send in the authorities there, because the law does provide to remove people's structures. You could imagine if you send down inside of there the bulldozers to start removing. So that really is not an option at this stage. What we're doing is we're trying to prevent the flooding, but it's going to happen. But the reinforcement at the back, let me ask you this question. It's illegal to drink and drive. So are you going to put the responsibility on the police to say, well, you know, they're not breathalyzing everybody every single day and they're not charging people and locking up people for drinking? So is the police fault? Or is it the person who takes the personal decision, I'm going to drink over the limit, I'm going to jump in a car and end up, unfortunately, in some instances, injuring themselves, worst case, killing themselves, or other innocent people?
If you want to use drinking and driving, we've seen that enforcement has changed behavior.
Yeah, but that's just, it is not the fault of the government or the police. That is a big brother, big stick policy. And you can't blame the police and blame the authorities for not going out there and charging people with drink driving all of the time, breaking the speed limit all of the time. The enforcement of the law, what you're saying is a societal issue, and unless there's somebody with a big stick over them, they're not going to act responsibly. We will do what we can, and we will utilize resources where we can and when we can. But I'll tell you, as the Minister of National Security, I much prefer having the police officers going after some of the most serious crimes and investigating serious crimes, preventing some of the more serious crimes, than charging persons for littering, charging persons for drink driving. But we will do it because society is demanding it.
That's that, Minister. We're talking about the development, but we are using taxpayers' resources to fix
Agreed.
that. And these people are in an area where, and they're in an area where they are not.
Let me ask you this. You are members of the media. You all have gone down. I saw the coverage, and it was excellent coverage over that 72-hour period. I did not see one question come across from a member of the media to a person who was, come and see the damage, come and see the flooding. I never flood. You all did not ask a single person, or maybe it wasn't covered, it didn't make the cut to ask them, but why did you build in an area that is a natural pond? Why did you build in an area where there's perennial flooding every year and sometimes more than once a year, and ask that question of them?
Place that someone can make a report. Let's say their neighbor is building something and it's encroaching on territory.
Yes.
So where do they make that report? Because lots
Two
of times they call
places.
us.
Two places. The municipal corporation, because they have powers. The engineer of a municipal corporation has powers, as well as Town and Country Planning. Those are the first two. The third state agency is the Commissioner of State Lands. If it is illegal squatting on state lands and infrastructures being put down on state lands that can cause problems. So between those three agencies, those are your first port of call. I can tell you, as a member of parliament, an elected member of parliament, I have constituents writing to me to complain about their neighbors and to complain about persons who've littered. As a member of parliament, even as a minister, there's very little that I personally can do. So those are the three agencies that you have to go through. The Town and Country Planning Development, they have powers under the law. Municipal corporations, they have powers under the law. And if it's state land, the Commissioner of State Lands. All right?
pump program, the pump replacement program, do we have like a cost for that, and how many pumps it would be, and what sort of areas, and would it be done in phases? And
Okay. As I said, the cabinet did approve a program, and this program is over a 3-year period. Every year in the budget, we will get an allocation. So it will be done on a phase basis. Bamboo tree is actually being done in this financial year. And what is going to come into bamboo, the 2 pumps that there since 1984, I think both of them are going to be replaced with new electric pumps with a larger capacity. What we're also doing in areas like that, we're actually bringing in, because some of these pump houses, I was amazed that they are like 30, 40, 45 years, no current. And obviously, in most cases, these pump houses are placed there because these are very low areas. So when you have flooding, it's difficult to even get to the pump to put them on. And this is why we took a note to cabinet to have all these pump houses upgraded, so you don't have to have someone on site to put on the pumps. Pumps will be automatic, and we'll be able to manage the flow a lot better. In bamboo, we have 3 pump sites, and all will be upgraded. In the Samoa area, we have the Sadu trace pumps. Those also will be upgraded, because the plan is going forward to replace all the old mechanical pumps with new electric pumps with a larger capacity. Because these pumps were designed when, the times were significantly different. These pumps were placed there when there were nobody living in the area. And you allow the pump to take the water off over a period of time. Because of the developments in the area, we have to get the water out in a much shorter time. So the government would have been proactive in the sense that we took this note to cabinet. We've had a lot of these new designs. You just don't go and buy a pump and bring it in. You have to do surveys, you have to do the studies, look at the capacity. And we are at the point now where some of the areas, the reconstruction of these areas would have started.
I'd just like to go to another topic, because as I say, we're constantly in communication here. Piparo, to go back to Piparo, I'm being told that there's a large turnout in Piparo, media present, etc., and that MP Padarat is there. This brings to mind exactly the topic that we're having conversation about here now. It is known, you learn in primary school, that there's a mud volcano in Piparo. There is nothing that a government or anyone can do to prevent a volcano from having volcanic activity and sometimes bubbling up, erupting, sometimes not, and remaining dormant. The government, despite whatever the empty barrels may say, has done all that can be done. We've employed, and we have the scientists down there, the ODPM is in charge, the police service, the fire services, etc. So I just want to reinforce that point, that it has been monitored, it is being monitored, and all that we can do, we will do. But no government or no person, as far as I'm aware as yet, has the ability to switch a volcano on and switch a volcano off. Well, again, that's going to be based on the assessment. So I've asked for a scientific assessment and report to be produced. And let's wait on it. There are other countries in the world with proper lava spewing volcanoes, for example. The islands of Hawaii come to mind, etc. And you just have to be aware, and you know where to build your house, etc. There were, a few years ago, there was quite a lot of volcanic activity and eruption, and persons lost their houses and these types of things. The government is continuing to be responsible and monitoring it, assessing it, and at the right time we'll see what needs to be said after. I certainly will see what needs to be said after being provided with the scientific evidence and advice. All right? Yes, as normal, Mr. Douglas. Go ahead with your wild question.
A forest ranger, more maybe to Mr. Rilla, a forest ranger said that the cutting of bush, like on the hillsides of Grande and so on, has stopped water falling there and seemed to have pushed the precipitation more towards the west. And I'm wondering if this is something that doesn't ring a bell maybe
Who said
reforestation.
that?
Well, a forest ranger had said that. I was just wondering if something like reforestation.
I
could
don't
be
think the
solution.
reforestation is a yes. All these things will help definitely, because if you have the hills being cut, then the water flows down to the valleys even faster. It brings slush with it, and those go into the water course. So we refer that, but I don't understand the logic of cutting trees in Grande that affects the west, because I don't know how that water from Sani Grande reaching down to the west, because the water in Sani Grande actually goes through the Urupuch side, goes
Was
into
that
the
at,
sea.
was that at a Monday night meeting? You heard that?
Precipitation, that if you have a hill and there's vegetation growing on it, it like helps the vegetation, the transpiration, helps the water cycle, and helps the water fall in that area. And
Well,
the actual
yeah.
precipitation, you get rainfall
No,
happening.
well, yeah, again, I mean, those things we actually learn that in primary school, that if you cut down all the forests, you create landslips, and obviously, I mean, a simple way to check that, if you have 1 acre of land that is that has vegetation on it, and you convert that to a concrete platform, the runoff there is about 3 or 4 times what happened before. So obviously, if you cut down the trees, and I mean, these are the things that to some extent we refer to as a climate change, because we are actually doing things that creates more flooding and more water flow into certain areas without the infrastructure. So yes, but I don't take that about Sani Grande cutting affecting the west, because the water goes into 2 totally different directions.
It's not really the runoff I'm talking about. It's actually being a rainmaker, that the bush acts as a rainmaker. So long time it used to fall in the east, but if a lot of bush has been cut down there, if the transpiration of the plants, it creates a water
I don't
cycle.
think I'm qualified
No,
to
I
answer
don't think
that
either of
question.
us are qualified to answer that question. All right, thank you all very much, members of the media. Much appreciated.